Hello and welcome to DTV, your source for news and information about the Knox County Democratic Party. I'm Michael Davis, and I'll be your host for today's show about the 2020 Knox County Commission election. With us today for our first segment is Courtney Durett, candidate for County Commission 2. Courtney, thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to DTV.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so please tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, your background and involvement in Knox County, and what's led you to run for County Commission.
Okay, well, I am a fourth generation, 2nd District Knoxvillian. I've lived here, my family's been here for, like I said, for 4 generations, and it's just a huge part. I don't consider it a community, it's a family, in my opinion. And with that, having a family of my own, I want to protect my family, I want to take care of it, and I want it to be the best it can be, and so therefore, that was kind of the last push to get me to run for County Commission. I've had a unique, I followed a unique path, I guess, throughout my life. My dad ran for school board when it was Knoxville City School Board, and so when I was 7, and so that kind of dangled that carrot of politics, and I've never forgotten it because I honestly thought we were moving to the White House when he was elected. And, you know, for a 7-year-old, that was kind of disappointing. And so there was that carrot I needed to, I'm reaching for it now. And so that kind of started it, led me down the path. I majored in political science at UT and then worked for the state senate in Nashville. And then I worked for Bredesen for economic and community development in Nashville. Came back, got my master's in education, and became a government teacher for high school students.
Okay.
And since then, I've had my 2 children, and became a neighborhood activist to help create safer streets for them, and that's kind of prompted me to do this. To have someone that's a regular average citizen, which I consider myself, representing regular people.
Okay. So you represent you would be representing the 2nd County Commission district.
Yes.
So how is it unique to Knoxville, or to Knox County? How would you describe this district?
Well, it is a unique district for Knox County in that a lot of it, I'd say at least 3/4, is still in city limits. And so it's very diverse. We have a good set of schools in this district, and you know, we have a larger population, I feel like, because we get closer to downtown. We have a lot of small business, not a whole lot of sprawl necessarily, and so it's a very dense district. Okay.
Are there any particular issues that you see that you would want to address in 2nd District if you were elected to County Commission?
Well, specifically in the 2nd District, we have to look at, we have Easttown Mall. The fate of Easttown Mall needs to be considered. I also want to consider connectivity with greenways and walkability. Again, I've referenced my kids a few times. I want to be able to take them places walking safely. When I was a kid, I was actually struck by a car crossing the street, and I don't want that to happen for my kids, and it's not that safe right now. And so creating the more walkability, more green spaces, specifically Easttown, figuring out its fate and what can attract and bring in more revenue to that part of our 2nd of the district. Also making sure we're not just tearing down things and building new things. Let's look at what we already have and see how we can renovate it versus going with something that's brand new. Right. I mean, that's part of the charm of the 2nd District, is a lot of it is old. My house is 100 years old this year, and you know, it's just keeping that versus tearing down to build new, or tearing down to put a business in a residential area. Right. It's keeping those zonings the way they are, but also looking at how we can maybe add more mixed use. Let's take what we've got. If there's businesses, maybe we can add housing above, apartments, condos, do that sort of thing versus, you know, sprawling out. Let's just use what we have first.
Yeah, I definitely echo that sentiment. Like, this one of the things, as a District 2 resident, I feel that's one of the attractive things about that area of town is it has some true neighborhood character to it.
It does.
How does preserving that mix in with the future coming to Knox County of higher population levels, more people coming to Knoxville every year? What do we do to maintain housing affordability, which is one of the things that people love about this town?
Right.
The cost of living is relatively low. How do we preserve some of those neighborhood character issues with sustainability, with affordability in housing and cost of living?
Well, and just kind of to reference what I said a minute ago is looking at maybe doing that more mixed use kind of deal, where instead of having to create something that costs more money or more housing, let's look at infill housing versus tearing down green space and building this 200 unit complex, which again, what's to guarantee that would be affordable? Let's just look at incentives to developers to come up with ideas on how to take what we've got, turn it into affordable housing, and keep the businesses where they are too.
Okay. Would you be in favor of any sort of increased requirements for walkability standards and traffic calming standards in certain areas of the county for new housing construction?
Absolutely. I cannot even believe that the sidewalk requirement for new development has been reduced. That, especially in housing. When you have housing, you're at least going to have some families and some children. And having sidewalks is not just a convenience, it's a necessity for safety, in my opinion. I mean, I've seen people not even paying attention and drive up on the sidewalk. Thank goodness nobody was walking, and that was on my street. Thank goodness nobody was walking, but still, it creates that buffer. My kids aren't allowed to play out in the front yard because we don't have a sidewalk on our side of the street, and there is just no barrier between these cars that come flying by. So sidewalks not only create safety for pedestrians, but they also create that buffer with cars and can potentially slow them down if it's making the road not as wide.
Right. Sometimes people think of sidewalks as being maybe a minor issue, but what does it really mean for the future of Knox County, for the future of Knoxville as a city and its attractiveness, and people looking to moving here, businesses relocating here in the future?
Well, I feel like people and businesses look for that convenience of being able to walk to places versus having to drive to them. We are fortunate enough to where we can walk to the library, we can walk to a park, we can walk to various businesses that we need for daily life. However, it's not safe. We have to cross Broadway for a lot of them, and if we create that safer, friendlier area where people can walk, I think it attracts businesses, and I think it attracts more homeowners or people looking to buy, because that's what the future is. I mean, people want that convenience of just being able to either walk or ride their bike to get what they need to get, whether it be groceries or a vet. We're lucky that we can walk to our veterinarian. Right. So, just it's incredibly attractive, I think, for residents and for future residents.
Okay. In the time that we have left, I would like to ask you, as a former educator, a recurrent educator, what are you satisfied with the performance of Knox County schools in general and the schools within District 2?
That's kind of a loaded question.
Or what areas you think need to be improved? Okay. Where can we get better? How can we improve education in Knox County?
Okay, and I say that was a loaded question because I feel like our teachers are phenomenal, and they do the best they can do with what they are given. And that's also coming from a former teacher. Like I said, I used to teach government high school, and we need to make sure that the teachers we have are getting what they need whether that's salary, benefits, classroom supplies, an adequate classroom, adequate building, and that goes hand in hand with students as well. We need to make sure that students are thought of as individuals with problems and issues of their own, not just test scores. And we don't need to base anything on numbers and test scores. We also need to remember that these are people who have things going on that for these children that's out of their control. And we just need to make sure we are keeping all of those things in mind when we're making decisions on money. I mean, 60% of the county commission's budget, of Knox County's budget, goes to the school system. And I feel that it's almost necessary that at least someone from an educational background is on county commission, because that's 60% of our budget goes to the school system. And right now, how many people on county commission have any educational background? I mean, background in education, excuse me.
Okay.
It's just something to think about.
All right.
I would definitely want to include teachers and principals on decisions that deal with that.
So, as a county commissioner, you're on the next county commission. How would you exercise your background as an educator on that commission to address specific issues like educational outcome disparities, overrepresentation of students of color in disciplinary actions? How can the county commission influence those things, or if at all?
Well, I feel like we can definitely look into it and work with our school board. I feel like there needs to be more give and take between the school board than there is. And like I said, we need to include teachers and principals and the people who are on the ground doing the work, and make sure that we know exactly the problem. Because anybody can walk through a school for a day and think they have the big picture, but you have to have worked in it and still work in it day in and day out to know these disparities. And let's ask teachers and principals their ideas for how to address them and come up with solutions. Let's not just leave it up to elected officials. Let's get it from the people who are doing the work.
Okay. All right. Almost out of time, but tell us a little bit about how our voters tell our voters what the important dates are coming up, and how they can get connected to you and your campaign to help out.
Okay, so my general election is August 6th. That's county commission. Early voting starts July 17th through August 1st.
Okay.
Please get out and vote. This is a notoriously undervoted election.
True.
Underrepresented election. Just because there's no, it's not a federal, it is the primary for some federal and state elections. So those are important dates. I'm trying to think, we're going to start canvassing soon. I believe the end of this month, we're going to get together in Shannondale area to start canvassing. So if you want to come out, you can email me at electcourtneydurrett@gmail.com, or you can give me a call, 865-216-2500. And I would love your help.
Okay. Any final thoughts that you'd like our voters to have from you about this campaign and this election?
Well, yes, I am, like I mentioned this early on, that I consider myself the average citizen. I am one of these people that's a ground-up person.
Okay.
I want to represent those that are doing the work, that are filling the pockets of the few on the top.
Okay.
That I've always been that person, and I want to represent those people and let them know that I have their best interests in mind in this election.
Well, thank you very much, Courtney, for being here today. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching DTV. We'll see you next time. Hello and welcome to DTV, your source for news and information about the Knox County Democratic Party. I'm Michael Davis, and I'll be your host for today's segment of our 2020 Knox County Commission election show with Todd Frohmmeyer. Todd, thanks for being with us today, and welcome to DTV.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, now you're a candidate for County Commission District 4. So tell our viewers a little bit about yourself. What's brought you to run for this County Commission seat? A little bit about your background and your involvement here in Knox County.
Yeah, sure. I'm retired military, retired lawyer. My wife's a doctor in the local area. So that's how I came to Knox County. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I have a 10-year-old stepdaughter, and my mother and my mother-in-law live with us. We have 6 dogs. So, you know, I really like the family aspect of Knox County. It really has worked well because I've traveled all over the world in the military. I lived in Washington, D.C. I've lived in California, and Knox County just as a good fit. I've only been here about 5 years, and being in the military, I did a lot of absentee voting over the years. And so I was used to doing that. Once I got to Knox County, and I've been voting in every election, what I've noticed is that there are a lot of unopposed races. 2 Republicans in a primary and no Democrat.
Right.
And I would go, I would vote, I would sometimes write my own name in, and I would go home and tell my wife, well, hey, you know, one of these times I ought to write my name in there. And then this past summer, it kind of felt like the next election was going to be a big one. 2020 was going to be a big one, maybe one that called for me doing something more than voting. Okay. So I looked into it, and in my district, District 4, there was not going to be a Democrat to run. And so, you know, one of my main issues is I think voters deserve a choice. I don't think there's enough choice on the ballot in Knox County, and I wanted to do something about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about District 4. What makes it unique? What are its boundaries? Where in Knox County is it located?
When I describe District 4 to people, and I have to tell them if they don't know, we're kind of West Knoxville, but we go up to the border of UT. Okay. So including Sequoia Hills, down North Shore Drive, it includes the Bends, Keller, and Tool Bend, and the third one that now I've forgotten. It goes up to Middlebrook, goes over to Walmart, and back down to about Concord Park. So that's okay. The size of District 4. I think we have a good variety of, you know, the West Knoxville life, so the mall is in District 4, but including some of the older neighborhoods that are down closer to downtown.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the chief issues in District 4 that you think County Commission should be paying attention to benefit the best interests of those citizens?
Well, I mean, I think for District 4, the issue is kind of the same as for the rest of Knox County. Schools are an issue across the county. Now, we're fortunate to live in an area where we've got good schools. My stepdaughter goes to Bluegrass, she'll go to West Valley, she'll go to Bearden High School, and those are good schools, and we chose where we live because of that. But I know that across Knox County, other people aren't as fortunate. And so one of the things I think that the whole of Knox County, and I think a commissioner, even just one who represents, say, District 4, ought to look at the entire piece of the pie as far as the schools ought to be better across the board, right? But, you know, I think besides schools very important. The 2 things that drive my campaign right now, money is a problem in politics in Knox County. So I take a stand against that. I don't really take any donations. I'm not taking any big money. I'm not taking any PAC money. That, and I think development in Knox County has gotten off track somehow. I'm for reasonable and responsible development, and I think the commission and the mayor are more development for the sake of developers. And so those 2 issues, I think, impact the entire county, but also District 4, of course.
Okay. A lot to unpack there with what you said. So beginning there with schools, it really does seem like that we shouldn't have to have kids that think of their educational situation as fortunate or misfortunate. How does the county commission, what's its role in trying to even out those disparities and addressing some of these particular burning issues that are affecting our students in Knox County today?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the commission obviously has a big part to play with schools, at least in the funding. Last year, the mayor's budget included a pay raise for teachers, which was, I think, maybe one of the first pay raises that they've had. And even with that pay raise, teachers are not paid as well as they could be. And so one of the ways that you make all schools across the county better is to make sure that teachers are paid sufficiently so that the best teachers want to come to Knox County, stay in Knox County, and when you raise the quality of teachers in the county, I think you raise the quality of schools. And then there's another issue that's specific to District 4, but also points, I think, to an issue that you can see across the county, and so the North Shore Elementary School. For anybody that has elementary school kids, you know that there's always going to be a line in the drop-off and the pickup for elementary schools. And that's a special problem for North Shore because it backs up all the traffic for the subdivision that's up there above the school down along North Shore. And so this goes back to my issue about development. I think there's a misplaced priorities in how those kinds of decisions are made. And there are going to be new schools coming in West Knoxville and maybe Northwest Knoxville that, the commission has to have a part in, considering not just the fact that we have to have the new schools, but where they go. And you take into account the traffic issues and, how near they are to the neighborhoods, walkability issues, because I think that's a really big issue for Knox County.
Right. With development, we see a lot of issues where if development is not held in check, infrastructure can't keep up with the new needs that it creates. We see that affect the community in very very big ways, like bring big changes to old neighborhoods.
Yes.
So things like community benefit agreements, where before development is allowed, there's close communication with developers, with new business, to make sure that they can guarantee and be held accountable for some of the benefits that they claim to be bringing into a neighborhood, that they will be working with the citizenry, and that the citizenry gets input on those things. They have a voice there. Those in certain communities where they've been implemented have proven to improve some of those things. How do you think that idea would be welcomed by County Commission, and what sort of ways could that be implemented by Knox County Commission?
Okay. Well, that's a pretty long question, but I think that fits with my idea that we need to have reasonable and responsible development. Mm-hmm. I point to 3 examples of the mayor kind of favoring developers over the needs of people. The TVA tower deal that got approved by the commission, I think, didn't look at the impact of how people could get access to their school board now that the school board's going to move over there. Right. There was an ordinance. Knox County said new developments had to include sidewalks. Developers went to the mayor and said, no, that's a little too much, and the commission changed that so that only some new developments have to include sidewalks. And then most recently, the growth policy plan issue that fortunately the Farragut mayor and alderman shot that down. The mayor was looking to take a level of oversight out of the growth policy plan over getting development, how it was going to go forth in the county, and they were going to make it just easier for development to go without the input of the people, and that's what I've seen as I've been going to the commission meetings since I've been running and watching how it goes, and I see that there's plenty of people on the commission who have the business interests and the developers' interests. They've got their back. Not enough, I think, for the rest of the residents. So my background, when I was in the military, I was the military equivalent of a public defender. So I would protect airmen from the big Air Force. After I retired from the Air Force, I went to work for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and I got a chance to help consumers fight against big banks and credit card companies and debt collectors. So my public service has been of the type that I want to help the people who don't have a voice. Right. And I think that's what we need on the commission. There's plenty enough business interest on the commission, and my opponent is a small business owner, which is great, but I think the commission could use a different perspective, different priorities, and that's what I'm running on.
Okay. So that viewpoint is typically not the most representative viewpoint on our Knox County Commission. How do you get some public support for that so that a few, I guess, outnumbered voices on a county commission can get those points across to the electorate to get things done?
Well, I mean, I think, look, the commission is made up right now of 10 Republicans and 1 Democrat. I'm hoping to change that balance. But even if all of the Democrats running are successful in the election in August, we will still be outnumbered by the Republicans. But I think the idea is it's possible in politics to disagree without being disagreeable. So we can get along, and sometimes we vote the same way, and sometimes we don't. And my political golden rule is be nice, help if you can. If you can't help, at least don't be a jerk. So I fully expect that I will be able to work with everybody on the commission for good ideas. But I think that the difference is I'm going to be able to ask the questions, make my points, and vote appropriately, even if I'm in the minority, to make sure that the people that don't have that voice have someone speaking up for them. And then hopefully we can find areas of common ground on the commission. We can find the things that we all agree with and get all of those things, make those be the focus of what the commission's work is.
Okay. Well, just a few minutes left. Tell our viewers how they can get in touch with you to help with your campaign and some of the things that you've got coming up, and and also some of the important dates that are coming up in this election.
Right. Well, I'm on social media at Fro4Knox4, and my email is the same, fro4knox4@gmail.com. Also, you can see here on the TV that my name, Todd Frohmmeyer@gmail.com. This is how you get in contact with me. I'm trying to do politics a little differently. I think that money is a problem in Knox County politics. So even though my opponent is raising quite a bit of money for his campaign, I'm not taking donations. I'm not independently wealthy, but I'm spending my own money because I think the focus shouldn't be on the big money, the $500 checks, the $1,000 checks, the PAC money that fund a lot of the campaigns, unfortunately, on the Knox County Commission. But it needs to be on the people. So I'm going to be out walking the neighborhoods of District 4. I'm on social media, and I'm trying to get to know the people of District 4 and of Knox County. And the election, the general election, is August 6th, and I would appreciate it if you would come out and give me a vote.
Okay. Todd, in just the minute that we have left, what is your vision of what Knox County can be at its best over the next 4 to 8 years, and how can you help that along as a county commissioner?
Well, when you say the next 4 to 8 years, I mean, I'm generally an optimistic guy, and I think Knox County is great. The development and growth that we've seen in West Knoxville, I think that's the kind of thing that we need to expand to the rest of Knox County, East Knoxville, the town center up in Northeast Knoxville. I mean, these are the things that we can make all of Knox County something where it's not just we in West Knoxville have a little bit better schools, a little bit better shopping, a little bit better opportunities, but I want to see all of Knoxville get that opportunity. And so that's what I think in 4 to 8 years we should be focusing on, development that's reasonable and responsible and benefits everybody, not just developers.
All right. Thanks a lot for being with us today, Todd. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.